Hey guys, good evening and welcome to Project Offbeat. Of course, it's your usual show na yun, nag-guest kami ulit ng mga non-corporate guests from all over the world, no? And, definitely today is no different. We have a special guest today, diba? But of course, let's get it rolling muna with my special host, no? Matt, kamusta ka pare? We're doing a shoot again on a nighttime, diba? Kamusta ka? How are you doing?
I'm really excited for our guest today. If anyone knows me, my friends, etc., they know that I post a lot of Twitter reviews of movies that I've seen from time to time. And I'm actually really excited to ask some questions that will pop up later on in the Offbeat episode and the Off the Record episode. So, yeah, I'm really excited to hear the insights that our guest might have for us.
Ayun. So, alam na natin, no? Medyo nagpa-teaser na si Matt on who and what career will we be focusing on today, mga ka-offbeat. Yeah, so I guess I want to give you a backstory muna on how we really got to be connected with our guests, diba? Back then when I was in Meralco, I was working for a marketing team then, no? And we worked with the producer, we worked with the director to come up with the commercials for Meralco. In retrospect, inisip ko nga, bakit pa kaya may commercial tong Meralco na to? Wala namang competitor sa market, no? But, that's what the beauty of commercials and film does, diba? It really gives customers that insight na that you want to bring them, right? And I met si Sarah and si Mateo Gudicelli before. Alam mo, mas na-impress talaga ako to the person or to the people that were pulling those things together. And that's the career that we want to talk about today. We are featuring the off-beaten career of a film director and a producer. Diba? Lahat tayo, including Matt, diba? We love a great movie. It has the chance to, make our day or break our days. Make us cry, diba? In our beds or maybe laughed out like crazy. Pero paano nga ba ito ginagawa? Apart from all the celebrities that we see, that's the things that we want to talk about today.
Well, our guest today is a multi-awarded director, producer, and screenwriter, the mind behind Engkwentro, which bagged the Lion of the Future Award and the Orizzonti Award at the 2009 Venice Film Festival. He's also the chairman of Epicmedia, an independent film company behind the box office hits like That Thing Called Tadhana and Fangirl.
Pinanood ko yung Fangirl na yan. Grabing, that was an intense show, no? Anyways,
Yes.
our guest is also associated with Unitel Straight Shooters, one of the largest production agencies in the country. Through his time there, he led the creation of the most emotional and viral commercials that you may know, like Kwentong Jollibee's Date, 'di ba? Yung nanay na, yung Valentine's date niya is yung tatay na nawala na, no? That was a tear-jerking emotional moment. Safeguards Manifesto, 'di ba? Yung a tribute to Norman King, the only ATA that graduated in a university back then. And of course, Lazada's Apology or Pride Week, 'di ba? Yeah, grabbing meaning din 'yon. But yeah, our guest today is the wonderful direct Pepe Diokno. He joins the Project Offbeat podcast today to talk about the career of film directing. Welcome to the show, Pepe. Kamusta ka?
Hi Lance. Hi, Matthew. Thank you so much for inviting me, for having me. It's a pleasure really to be part of this. Thank you.
Awesome. Why don't we get it started, Pepe? No. Can you share to us what does it really mean to become a film director, a film producer, and a director? Any kahit saan ka magsimula, okay lang, no? Ano ba mga ginagawa niyo talaga in being this career?
Marami, actually. At the end of the day, what people see is what's on screen. So, of course, when people think of directors, they can imagine us on set with the camera, behind the camera, or with lights, or talking to actors. But actually, before we get to that point, there's a lot of arrangement and what we call pre-production that goes into that. It's a lot of putting people together. It's a lot of really just trying to interpret the words that come out in a script. And then after you see us on set, there's also a lot of work that goes into that. So it's a lot of, having to edit the movie, and then all the way until it is released. We even think about how to market a film. So andun siya, it's a lot of different hats, I think, that a director wears. Although I have to say, I actually haven't made a film in 7 years. So it's been a
Wow.
while.
Talaga, ah? Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I have a film production company that's been active, although I'm not really involved in the day to day. Over the last few years, I've really been focused more on advertising, which is also a love that I have. Actually, it feels weird to say that advertising is a love, but it is actually. Um, I am the kind of person who actually remembers my a lot of ads from my childhood. I still sing the songs. I still can imagine the words and
Yeah.
yung mga jingle.
Yeah.
So yun, I have to say that advertising is also a love, a creative love for me.
Why do you think that mas ano ka na ngayon, inclined to, advertising and commercials versus films? Is it like shorter preparation ba? Shorter shoot days, or what is it about these commercials that you so prefer about?
I like the challenge of having to distill so much thought and so much intention into 30 seconds. And
True.
sometimes not even 30 seconds. It's ngayon, as you guys probably know, it's a 6-second commercials.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So much. I'm working on a commercial now for a financial institution, and we have to put a disclaimer at the end. 2 seconds. Can you imagine 2 seconds? Even if it's a 6-second commercial,
Right, right.
which means we only have 4 seconds to impart our message. So napakalaking challenge niya, and I like the creative challenge that comes with.
Right. Pepe, does it always start with I remembered back then when I worked in Meralco, does it always start with always getting to know your clients first, and getting to know the brand intently? Paano siya nagsisimula? I mean, definitely you would have to cast, 'di ba? Pero in terms of conceptualizing the commercial in itself, paano yun nagsisimula?
You're right. It does involve having to get to know the client as well as you would know a person or a character in your film. Minsan iniisip ko, especially when I make mga narrative commercials like the Kwentong Jollibees or yung mga short films that have brands in them, I tend to think of the brand as a character within the film. And some clients really go as detailed as to have a like a
My brief.
biography, a brief, definitely, like they even tell you what color they are and what that colors what those colors mean, which I
Grabe.
really appreciate. I really
Mhm.
appreciate. So yeah, that's really the start of it.
This discussion kind of takes me back because Pepe, just so you have context as well, I worked in a market research company before I transferred jobs last year, and we didn't have a lot of commercials that went our way. Usually, it's more of like, oh, how do we frame this product? But a lot of the discussion is so. If you're outside of that bubble, it's very nitpicky already. But if you're inside that bubble of actually wanting to create the best product that the audience will care about. Even the words unspoken or spoken are so crucial to uh, the whole thing. As in like just to give you an example, it's like there was this product. Do you say chocolatey or choco chip? Mga ganon. Yung tipong ganong small details they put a lot of attention to. So I understand like what Pepe is saying na interesting challenge tong mga commercial because you're trying to, I guess, incorporate a story but also incorporate the brand as well, di ba?
Yeah, I really love those attention to details. It's only when I entered advertising that I started paying attention to, for example, what colors I put in a frame.
Oo.
Super busisi natin even with the way hair falls down or with the way a product falls down. And I really like that attention to detail kasi the more you, for me at least, the more I
Mm.
challenge myself to think about these details, the more nare-reveal sa akin kung ano yung gusto ko talaga sabihin or kung ano talaga yung kailangan sabihin in a frame. So I have to admit, when I started doing films, kasi I was really young. I started making films I made my first film at 20 years old. So I had so much to learn. And with film, kasi it's such a, it's so free and easy to make a film. For better or for worse, I was able to make my first film for Cinemalaya. Kahit wala akong background, they gave me a grant to shoot for them. Yeah, kahit wala akong background or experience, Cinemalaya gave me 500,000 to make my film, which wasn't
Grabe.
Really, it's not a lot to make a film, but it was a good start. But yun, parang with so much freedom, I really wasn't, for me at least, learning. I really wasn't being pushed. And so, na-appreciate ko siya going into advertising na parang every single detail tinatanong sa akin as a director, I needed to have an answer. And feeling ko after, it's been what 7 years of doing that, talagang nahasa ako. So now, I'm starting to make films again. I feel na I'm more
You feel the
in,
freedom again, ganon.
I feel the freedom again, but also I feel like I've been trained a lot more, and I'm ready to take on the freedom more so than I was before.
Mas mahirap ba, Pepe, na gumawa ng film na, you have to tell a story for like an hour at the least, no? And parang walang clients to put some constraints there. Like, okay, use this color, use this. Film is like, although, diba? Film is like your entire creative freedom, right? Mas mahirap ba yun? Or you actually like that kind of setup more?
Mas mahirap siya kasi I sort of have to be the client. Kung gaano kabusisi yung mga client ko sa akin in advertising, I wish kabusisi with my own output now. And I wish na I can reach that level.
I do remember in my time in Meralco, kala ko ang lagi ko lang imi-meet na mga tao, no, is the director and the producer. Pero when I go down to the shoot hall, there's like 25 or 30 people around the celebrities that we hired, diba? Can you talk to us about the team behind maybe a commercial or a film? What are the roles that there are that maybe most people don't know about?
Okay, so there's a lot. Yeah, you mentioned if you go to a film production set, there's before pandemic, mga 100 people on set.
Grabe.
Yeah, it's a
Wow.
lot. And then during pandemic, because of the restrictions, they put a max at 50. And even then, we were like, parang 50 lang talaga. But yeah, but I'm sure to somebody who doesn't work in the industry, 50 seems like a big number. But so yeah, there is the camera department, which is headed by the director of photography. So siya yung in charge with the lighting, with the lensing, and the way that the camera moves. And then there's the production design department, headed by our production designer. So siya yung in charge with building the sets, all the physical things that you see,
Right.
the sets, the props, the wardrobe. Si production designer yun. And then you have the people who work behind the scenes pa. So these are the production managers. So they are the ones who are in charge of securing the location, dealing with the authorities, getting the permits, paying everybody, making sure that there is traffic, nasusunod yung schedule. And then under them, there would be, for example, lahat ng mga transportation, the drivers, yung catering. And then you mentioned that there are also mga artistas involved. So that's the very bare bones, what I mentioned. If there's an artista, the artista will probably be coming with a hairstylist,
Yeah.
a wardrobe person, their manager, their road manager, their their I've worked
Talent
with,
manager rin, no? Mga ganun din. Mga talent manager.
with artistas who have nagmamasahe with them. Right?
What? Really?
She this is before the pandemic. She would let us also make pamasahe.
Yeah.
How nice.
Pag napagod sa set, no?
You mentioned kanina, Mateo and Sarah. I worked with Matt a few times. I did a series with him. Super duper nice guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did one commercial with him. It was just with him, so Sarah was not part of the commercial, but she stayed the entire day just to be with her partner. And
Wow.
Oh, that's so nice.
yeah, she was there. She was just there at the side, not saying, super quiet.
I guess, Pepe, can you take us through how much time are you able to work with, be it a film and a commercial? Because we had a discussion with our a freelance conservation photographer before, and he talked about how he was just given like a week to process a story, to get out the emotions, to actually convey the story behind, you know, a particular, for example, ecological place or something. So in your experience, how much time are you usually given to work with for, let's say, a film or maybe a commercial?
Well, with the film, I think the shortest amount of time I took was maybe 6 to 8 months, something like that.
Mm,
But usually, with my first two films, I was working on the script for about 2 years, and then it took us also within that 2 years to try to get funding for the film. So matagal siya. It's like an
Grabe.
iceberg.
Yeah.
Parang you see the tip, which is a small part, but underneath that, there's a lot of time that goes into it. And a lot of it is just like parang thinking, not really actually working, but just like thinking a lot about the script. Not actually writing really, but just thinking. So that's usually the amount of time. Although some directors, I heard it in the matter of a few months nagagawa nila. I don't know how they're able to do that. Gagaling.
Are there times that the script that you prepared for years is discarded? Wala
Yeah,
naman.
yeah.
Really?
I have a whole folder of discarded ideas.
That's why parang sinasabi nga nila, dito daw magaling si Netflix eh. Because they're able to like pick up like discarded shows by different, streams. Pero pinipick up at binibili ng Netflix. And then suddenly it becomes a box hit like, Money Heist, I think had that kind of story. Hopefully direct makuha pa natin yung story mo. Maybe later on
Oh, Squid Game. Di ba parang the Squid Game guy,
yeah, exactly.
he tried to get
Exactly.
it on for years, tas nobody was giving him the money to do it. Tas biglang nakuha siya na Netflix and the rest is history.
Wag mo tatapon Pepe yung yung ideas. Why not, right? You never know. Pepe, can you talk to us about why don't we lock down more into the career of being a director? What are the three most important qualities that you see is needed for a director?
The ability to tell a story, the ability to empathize with people, and then the ability to motivate people.
Bakit empathize? Why is that like needed? Is it empathizing with the people acting? Ganun?
Everyone, empathizing with the characters on screen, empathizing with the actors who are portraying the characters, empathizing with the people on set and the egos on set, and then if you're working on a commercial, also empathizing with the clients and with the agencies. And I say empathy kasi parang you really need to know where people are coming from. You need to put yourself in their position. You need to listen to people in order for things to work. Kasi if feeling ko lang, if there's if there's a roadblock doon and you're not
mm.
hearing everything and you're not understanding where everybody's coming from, then parang it's just a recipe kasi for disaster, I think.
So
So
parang empathy is like your secret sauce to kind of make that story translate to camera.
I I I hope so. I hope so.
Kasi I'm just imagining, are all directors empathetic? Do you think so? Or have you met directors before na magaling pero may konting talagang hindi ganun ka-empathetic?
Yung mga nagtatapon ng kasi yung mga nagtatapon ng cellphone, I've heard stories. I don't know eh. Maraming ganon in film. Not marami, but I've heard of cases like that in film. In advertising, I think it's hard to be that kind of person kasi if you're difficult to work with, then people will not work with you.
Pepe, you mentioned earlier, 20 years old ka pa lang, gumagawa ka na ng film, right? And here's Cinemalaya also granting you this, right? And I honestly think that it's no accident, right? They must have seen something in you as well. Pepe, can you tell us why did you start directing? About how did you start? I guess we can start with how did you discover it, right? I think you're coming from a family na puro politicians, right? But then you were here going into film, right? Going into directing, 'di ba?
Going into the arts
Ha-
even, yeah.
Going into the arts even, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Sobrang iba niya, sobrang offbeat niya, 'di ba? How did you start and why did you do it?
I started in high school. That's really where my love for film began. For Filipino class, we had to do yung mga Ibong Adarna, the movie, Florante at
Lahat naman tayo.
but I really felt for it hard. Like I loved every single part of it, like having to write the script and then casting my classmates and then shooting it. And then at the time, we didn't have digital cameras yet. This will reveal my age, but mini, mini DV tapes pa yung gamit namin doon, mga V8 tapes, and then we had to capture, and I had to go to UP to capture the film and digitize it and then edit, and then I would stay up all night to edit. And then I was lucky kasi yung mga kaklase ko in Lasal, sorry, in Lasal Green Hills, we all sort of really enjoyed making our films. Now we made it a thing. Like our section had like a film festival at the end just to show all of it. We had awards. There was like a competition between the different groups about who would make the best film, and I really enjoyed it, and that's when I said, "Oh, parang this is a career I can pursue, or I want to pursue."
So parang would you
I
say
see.
that your early experience, it's roughly what you would experience later on in your life? Is it like relatively equivalent, or what's the difference, I guess, from that high school you versus being introduced to the production, the professional world of filmmaking?
The high school me was faking it a lot kasi
Really?
I really didn't. There's for me. There's no way to really study film, even if you were to read all the
Exactly.
books. Different if you're on set. Um,
Mm.
I, for example, didn't memorize yung mga focal lengths na mga lenses until, or yung mga aperture na mga lenses until recently, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And so, nangangapa talaga ako. But at the same time, kahit nangangapa ako, I had to pretend to everybody because I was the director to pretend na I knew everything. So, I tended to, just swing hard and have so much bravado early on. And parang the opposite is true now. Na the more I know, the more I don't have I don't feel like I have to perform, or I don't feel like I have to parang assert my ego.
Yeah. Alam mo, Pepe, well, while you were saying that, it reminded me of this TEDx that you did, no? For our ka-offbeat, please watch this TEDx. Ang dami ko natutunan about the film society and the film industry, no? And I think there was one thing that you mentioned there na parang film is really able to give you a perception of the country that where you're at or what you're watching, diba? That's why we all love going to the US because we see all of these Hollywood films. That's why we love going to Japan and Korea because ang ganda ng ano nila ang ganda ng way of portrayal nila in these shows, right? Is it okay if you could shed more light to this, no?
Yeah, as you mentioned, film is, for lack of a better word, a cultural product that countries tend to export. And of course, all of us are big fans of Hollywood. All of us are big fans of Korea. Na we don't really realize that when we watch their movies, we're also being sold their culture or being marketed their culture from the yeah,
K-pop
K-pop,
is
exactly.
grabe,
From the way that the Koreans dress to what they eat to
for
visit
sure.
Korea, lahat yan is packed into their films. Now, if you look at the Philippines now, and most of us, I would say, many of us are K-drama, K-pop fans. A lot of us are going to Korea. A lot of us are going to Korean supermarkets. I was just at the Korean supermarket yesterday. We're eating Korean food. We're learning Korean words. We're buying their albums and their products, even down to Korean electronics, Samsung, for example, or Korean cars. So there's just so much power that goes into film. Countries though, like Korea and the US and others, even China, they are aware that films have so much power, that cinema, media, storytelling, series have so much power. So they actually invest a lot into it. So Korea, for example, invested so much money into their film industry. They started out in the 1960s. Their output was so low, and I would talk to Korean filmmakers. They would say that their films were, in their words, really bad. Nobody would watch their films. But what they did was, apart from investing, they also put a quota. So all of their movie houses had to play a specific number of Korean films. And so they really grew their industry, started small, and then they grew it until what we see now, that the world is paying attention. Unfortunately, with us, the opposite is true. We used to have a big film industry. Actually, we used to, I think, be number two after Japan in terms of output.
Damn.
But instead of investing and putting quotas for our cinemas, what our country did was to heavily tax our movies. So they put in a 30% amusement tax, and they basically let Hollywood run over all of our cinemas. So when I was growing up, if I would go to a movie house, I would not really see any Filipino films playing. I would see mostly Hollywood films playing. So our cinema really shrunk, and that's I think a real pity. So there are moves now, I think, to strengthen the creative industry. Again, not just film, but other creative industries. There is, for example, fashion, design, even I would say food is a creative industry. Events are a creative industry. So there's a move to strengthen that. Yeah, I think still more can be done, and more should have been done much earlier.
That takes me back to, I think when I was a kid, at least, I used to see so many films with Dolphy. Like, I think that was like the golden age of Philippine cinema. And I think it really shows in the end product, even so many years after. And like one more thing, no, as much as we say stuff about, oh, films showcase a lot of like what's good in America or Korea, they also showcase a lot of the problems and how films can kind of create change towards the modern, like, society, the issues of society. So parang I think in some sense, hopefully, a better film industry could hopefully have a better Philippines. I don't know.
I would have to say, yeah. I mean, I talked a lot about how there's a lack of government support for it, and that's a big thing. There's a lot, but even more that I think we need to address when it comes to that. And it's that, as you mentioned, na parang films tackle societal problems, and
Right.
even though they do, people still watch them. I would argue that Dolphy's films, and I was watching Home Along the Reels when I was growing up. I would even argue that tackled some sort of societal issue.
Right.
Dolphy lived beside the train tracks. His neighbor, si Nova Villa, was rich and more well off. He had a boss who overworked him, things like that. So they tackle societal problems. But in Korea, for example, you have films like Parasite or
Yeah.
Squid Game, and even though they tackle these darker issues, people still watch them. I think even more fundamental right now is, if you had Filipino films that tackled the same issues as beautifully, the question then becomes, would people even watch it? Would Filipinos, would we ourselves even watch it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's quite sad because I've had some conversations with people who work with streaming services, and we're always asking them. I won't name which streaming services, but we're always asking them, like, when are you going to produce more originals? Kasi sila talaga yung naglalagay ng pera eh.
Yeah.
If the government is not putting in money, the cinemas are still recovering. It's the streaming services that have the money to produce films. So we're always asking them, when are you going to produce more? And the answer that they always give us is, with markets like Indonesia, for example, Korea, India, we have to produce local content. Otherwise, the locals won't watch us. If we don't produce Indonesian content, then the Indonesians won't watch us. If we don't produce Korean content, then the
Yeah.
Koreans will not watch us. But in the Philippines, even if we don't produce Filipino content, the Filipinos will still watch us. They'll
Yeah.
still watch us for our Hollywood. They'll still watch us for our Korean. So, bakit kami tataya? Why would we, not their words,
Oo
but
nga, no?
Right.
why
Yeah.
would we put our money there when we don't need to? So, yun, parang even a lot of intervention is needed. Even us as a viewing audience, we need to have a change of mindset about our
Exactly.
own movies.
Yeah. You think this is related to Philippines being so westernized?
I
Diba?
think so. I think so. Also, yun nga parang as I mentioned, di ba, Korea put in a quota, a screen quota. Even the France has that quota. But what it does, it trains kasi the local audience to look for their own or to appreciate their own content. Kasi kung nandun, if kung nasa sinehan and you're forced or for lack of a better word, people are forced to see these films in the cinemas, meaning they're given that option, they're forced this option, then they'll realize, oh, okay, we have local options para we can. But for as long as that option is not enforced, then
Yeah.
we'll always look for something else.
I want to add in something like real quick because I spent like a few months in France before, and some of the initiatives that I just want to like add no is that sometimes in the city that I was in, there were like these movie houses and they would just show free French films for for free, and anyone can just go in. And I believe it's subsidized by the government. I'm not sure. If you want to go in and watch a westernized film, everything is everything is in the French language. You won't It's very rare to see like an English, English audio kind of film. So parang I think these are the initiatives that Pepe already touched on. We'd like to see more in the Philippine context.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the way they foster their industry, like in France, mahal ang cinema, mahal ang ticket to
Right, yeah, yeah.
when I was there, 2013, it was 10 euros, 11, something like that.
Oh, and you remind me, I think it's more expensive to buy the Marvel movies versus
Yeah,
the French movies. Yeah.
yeah, super. And then they would also have like a program na, okay, a ticket costs maybe 10 euros,
Right.
give or take. But some cinemas will have a program that if you pay them 10 euros a month, so kind of like a streaming service, then you can watch unlimited French.
Oh, that's
Hello.
awesome. That's awesome. Sana may ganun tayo, right? I mean,
And 10 euros
that's
is what, like 500, 600, something like that.
yeah.
In
Something.
that
Yeah.
in that
So, just
Sa
sticking to France, I think they passed a law or they're about to pass a law requiring streaming services to invest X percentage of their revenue from France back into French films or French series, which is a great idea, I think. Now, the streaming services, they're making so much money off of Philippine audience, and yung pera na yon nilalabas lang nila to their home country. But dapat, I think, if they're making millions from a Philippine audience, they should reinvest at least a part of that into producing Filipino content. I think that would be a good law to pass.
Pepe, usually in this show, when we talk to our audience, lagi namin sila, we're asking questions for them like, how do you become a director? How do you become in this career and that career? No, but I'd like to repurpose it this time around. I want to ask the question: what can our audience or the Filipino people do to further or to really promote the film industry? Kasi parang Matt mentioned earlier, 'di ba, sa France may isang gobyernong napaka-generous at isa-subsidize nila yan at hangga't manood ka lang. But we all know in the Philippine society it's not that, right? Sabi mo nga kanina, bumabaliktad pa tayo, right? And I remember this time in college where I had this philosophy professor and he required us to watch this Filipino show called Birdshot. I'm not sure if you know this na by Mikhail Red. As in, namulat ako like that is the first time I saw a Filipino movie this deep, this powerful in dialogue, and obviously it's trying to bring a societal concern to us, no? Anong pwede nating gawin? I think definitely we really have to watch more in the cinemas, right? Ano pang pwede nating gawin to really promote the Filipino film and commercial industry?
I think, of course, the number one thing would be to watch and then to recommend to your friends and even your friends and family na parang who would really want to avoid Filipino films, really just try to find an opening and get them to watch the films. Marami kasi sa atin yung sarado na talaga eh, na when you just say Filipino film or you just say independent,
Exactly. Ang dami niyan.
yeah, may
Ang daming
negative
ganyan.
connotation na. But slowly and surely, it's not going to be an overnight thing, but hopefully, when you have more bird shots, you have more films like Himala, for example. You know, the best winner in Cannes this year, which is I think a Swedish film. One of the lead actresses there is Filipina. Um, so I think the more successes we have like that, then little by little. But yeah, it's gonna take time. I think the number one thing would be lang sana we don't, or we would argue or answer anybody who would generalize na parang they see one or two bad Filipino films and today to them bad Filipino films, and they would generalize ayoko ng Filipino films kasi lahat sila pangit. I
Sobra.
back on that and say let's not accept that. Let's recommend to them at least one that we think is good.
I mean, nothing against them, no? Pero laging tumatatak sa kanila mga Vice Ganda shows, mga Coco Martin, mga Enteng Cabezote, di ba? Puro gano'n na lang yung nasa minds ng mga tao. I honestly hope that we can somewhat challenge that, no? Or parang, uy, can you give this a chance muna bago ka mag-critic, di ba? Kasi ang daming
Yeah.
mas magaganda dyan.
I mean, talking about like the international scene, Pepe, you also have your own experience showcasing a Filipino film to like foreign audience. Can you describe what's that like? Like I'm personally curious also, like how do you even qualify for these film festivals? Do you just submit it, email mo lang sa venicefilmfestival.com, etc. I don't know. Can you like elaborate on that process?
Well, yeah, the biggest or the bigger festivals, Cannes, Berlin, Venice, and even what they call so those are the big three, and then you have mga second tier ones. They usually have representatives in different parts of the world who have their ears on the ground. They're what they call film festival programmers. So these programmers, they have connections with the smaller festivals. So in the case of Venice, their programmer is a guy named Paolo, an Italian guy. He always goes to Cinemalaya. He's in contact with Cinemalaya. So when I entered Cinemalaya, I was told by Cinemalaya that, oh, Paolo is looking for films. Please send your film for consideration. And then, he was the first filter, and then he passed it on to his higher ups, and then they eventually chose the film. And then from there, we flew to Venice. We had to raise money to do that, and then the audience got to see it. So that's usually the process. Na you would be discovered in a way by somebody in that network.
Pepe, now that you're given this kind of opportunity, can you share to us naman, how do you hone your craft, right? You mentioned 20-year-old you, I mean, was fun and all, right? But then now you're way, way, way more seasoned, diba? And you're doing this for real na, no? How did you hone yourself through the years, and what can our audience learn from that?
I really wish I entered advertising before I entered film. Kasi it's really by doing a lot of work that you can really hone your skill at anything.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate na I get to shoot at least one project a month, and every project is like a different animal, a different set of people, a different genre, a different story. So I'm able
Yeah.
to try a lot of hats without really parang being afraid to put my name out there. Kasi with film, andun yung pangalan mo, so it has to be perfect.
Exactly.
The picture is on the,
Ganda.
but with advertising, your name is not there, or it's not the main thing. So you can experiment and you can be really, really free. I wish I listened to the advice. I think some entrepreneurs are given this advice na parang, okay, you have a great business idea, but diba, it's better to work for another company first to make your mistakes there. And then after you've learned, that's when you set up your own company so that you don't have to pay for your own mistakes. So I wish I did that also with my film career. And that's what I always when I give talks to younger filmmakers, I always tell them, make your mistakes first under, under something, and then
Yeah.
only after you've done a good body of your work and you're more confident in yourself, then tumaya ka in yourself.
Ganda. I mean, this is the first time, or this is the first guy that I've heard that used advertising as that training ground, because everyone thinks that advertising is like super hectic na
Yung
parang
mga
walang.
agency, yung mga ganun.
Oh, yung mga agency
Yeah.
na kapag nagkamali ka, bukas wala ka ng trabaho. Hindi naman siya gano'n, no? I like that perspective ni Pepe.
Hindi naman siya ganun. I've met like really the most forgiving, creative, and I've made some really big mistakes also in advertising. There's a big support system also there, kasi you're working with people who are in production talaga, at least if you're working for a larger production house, ganun. So yeah, it's been a good training ground. Although it really is hectic and you really are sticking your neck out, but yeah, at least you're covered.
Nice.
Pepe, there was this post that I saw from my friend. She's worked in multiple projects as well. She shared a post recently. It says, "Do I need to have a film degree or be a film graduate to be a filmmaker?" Now, I guess this is a fairly obvious answer already. Na it's a no. You don't need to have a film degree, no. Pero I guess, like, are there any workshops or are there any short courses that you would recommend to people who want to be a filmmaker, no?
Yeah, I don't actually have a film degree. I didn't finish my course at UP. I'm so sorry, mom.
But you took up filmmaking. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
I did. And up until now, my mom still talks about that. Should finish your degree. Sorry, Mom. But yeah, you don't need to. There's always, yeah, okay. In film school, I met some people that I still work with until today. Some of really good friends. My producer Bianca, I met her. We were classmates in UP. I worked with some crew that I was classmates with. So it's a good place to meet people. You are given some experience, but in UP kasi at the time we really didn't have a lot of equipment, so we really didn't get a lot of hands-on. But there are film schools that give you good equipment, but they're also more expensive. So the thing is, parang you can everything that you I think want to know is on YouTube, and you can attend workshops. And the best way to do it talaga is to go out in the weekends and shoot your film, even with your
Mm.
cell phone or with your DSLR if you have one, or just TikTok is really great to parang familiarize yourself with storytelling. So parang the question becomes, am I gonna spend X amount of money for enrollment in a film school, or will I spend that same amount of money to make my own
Mm.
short films on the side?
Good point, yeah.
But I also have to say, because I just yeah also realized now that I do have some friends, couple, who after having had experience or who are established already in the Philippines, they chose to go back to film school in the States, to
Mm.
Hollywood Film Institute, I think. I have a friend, a cinematographer, and he was one of the top cinematographers here, did movies, did ads, but he stopped all of that to study in the States. And I think he just graduated, but he spent 3 years in school again. Pero ang maganda sa kanya now is that because he met people in that film school, he's shooting films na in LA, he's shooting films in New York.
Wow.
So I guess in that sense, it was a net gain for him to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Sabi nga nila, your net worth is your network. Diba?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's all about the people you meet along the way.
Although that film
Yeah,
school is not expensive, it's not cheap. It's yeah,
exactly.
really expensive. In pesos, it's in the millions.
Right.
Grabe talaga. Okay. I think this is our last question for the offbeat career portion, Pepe. I think we told you earlier na we did this podcast for our fellow corporate professionals, 'di ba? Na 8 to 5, 9 to 6 sila lagi. No? They're working day in and day out in their laptops, 'di ba? Taking meetings here and there, 'di ba? What do you think can corporate professionals learn from a director like yourself, no? At least in their crafts, in the things that they do, meron ba silang pwedeng mauwi sa isang film director?
I don't know. I find myself constantly learning from corporate people.
Ooh.
Oh, really? Really? Parang in the way that we deal with clients or the way that we deal with revisions to the way we manage our team, I tend to learn more from the corporate setting.
Wow.
So yeah,
That's
that's
such a, yeah, learning is always a two-way street, diba? So I think ako as a corporate professionals, what I learned is empathy, right? Empathy at work, Pepe, is not as easy as, because I think kapag nagsushoot ka, at least kita mo yung mga tao, di ba? Kung pagod na sila or whatnot. But in corporate, like sometimes you can't even be tired because the demands of the work is intense. So I think that empathy is something that we'll really take away. All right, thank you for taking us off the beaten path, Pepe. I guess just a few questions. Let people know where you are right now and what are you excited about in the next few days?
well, right now I am at home. Just recently moved in, so our home is still empty. So with my partner, sort of just building it piece by piece. So we started with the floors, and then yun. So I'm excited that the next few days, weeks, and month na unti-unting ma-fill up yung home. What else am I looking forward to? Yeah, that's it.
Mukhang hindi pwede i-share ni Pepe yung next film nila. I guess we'll
Okay.
just have to.
Oh yeah, no, I can mention that.
Okay.
So, well, hopefully matuloy. But I'm working with just with Communications in Ateneo to produce a film about Gomburza. So that's Gomez, Burgos, Zamora, yung three martyrs.
Yep.
Because which is super important kasi sabi nga ng iba, history is chismis.
Ay.
But it's a really, parang if you've seen films about the revolution, if you've seen films about General Luna or Rizal or
Goyo. Yeah.
Goyo,
Goyo, yeah.
Urza is like a prequel to all of that. It really shows kung ano yung seed ng naging national identity natin, quote unquote, or yung naging revolution. So it's a really exciting film. Hopefully we can start to do it. Actually, we had a pre-production meeting on the film March, I forget the date, but siguro March 12 or 13, 2020. And then the lockdown happened something like
Oh man.
March 17. No? So talagang na-stop kami ng pandemic. But now that things are going back to normal, hopefully pwede matuloy na. And I think, yeah, Sina Jescom are also fast tracking it. So we hope to continue.
Yeah, that's something that's very, very exciting. I myself don't know shit about Gumburza, no. I only know their tragic deaths, no. But please, Pepe, tell us the story, in your own light. We'd love to hear it. If people are interested with your career or with your story, Pepe, how can they contact you?
Through Instagram. So that's instagram.com/Pepe Diokno. And then my links are all there.
Awesome. And last but not the least, Pepe, what for you is taking the off-beaten path?
Taking the off-beaten path, I think is good question. I have a teacher, yung mentor ko si Sir Ricky Lee, National Artist
Of
Ricky Lee,
course.
recently.
Of course.
Love him. And one of our first few days in class, ang sabi niya sa amin is to trust the rubber band. So whatever doesn't feel comfortable, just stretch it and see where it goes. Kasi sabi niya, even if you stretch it, babalik ka naman to your intention or where you want to. But it's important that you're able to stretch it. So I think off the beaten path is yun, parang testing your tensions and stretching something to a point na it feels uncomfortable.
Wow.
That's like
National
yeah,
Artist Ricky Lee.
yeah. Kala ko mga atinista lang yung mga nagbe-metaphors, no? But here's Pepe, kalaban namin to, pero the metaphors are on point, no? Anyways, thank you everyone for listening to the show. If you liked our show, Follow us as well in Facebook, IG, LinkedIn, and YouTube for exclusive content. That's at the Project Offbeat. Thank you, everyone. Kita kits sa next episode, and here's to taking the offbeaten path. Cheers.